For music, welcome to everyone who's watching. But also, I know we have viewers in Turkey, we have viewers in New Zealand, in America, in England, various parts of England, in Spain, and as well as in Norway. So welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us. We hope you're going to enjoy this selection of music in the next hour or so. Tonight's program, a classical selection, and I have put together, I thought, a really nice, a very music tonight. Has an incredible positivity about it, incredible energy, and lovely, exuberant, a very wholesome, uplifting, positive feel I think is going to flow through right from the beginning to the end of the program. And this evening I will be playing music by J.S. Bach, his Partita No. 1, 3 compositions, youthful or early compositions by Claude Debussy, and then finishing off with a nocturne and a great, brilliant Scherzo by Frédéric Chopin. Now this evening it's another steamy, incredibly humid day in this part of the world, so I am going to be leaving the air conditioning on, otherwise I am going to melt in the heat of being in the studio. We're trying out some extra lighting effects and some extra new ideas, not only with the lighting but also with the technical presentation. We'll show you that later on. But I think let's just dive right into the music and start off with a composition by J.S. Bach. This is Partita No. 1. Now Bach wrote a number of these suites, a suite of movements or a suite of dances as we call them. He wrote very conveniently, neatly organized 6 English suites in an English style supposedly, 6 French suites in a French style, and the German suites he called partitas. And there's no, one can't really always say that what is the style of it, how does the nationality of the style reflect in the particular selection of pieces, but the partitas are generally the grandest and the most complex of the various selections. And so this Partita No. 1 is a great favorite. It's been played by many pianists. I think it's one of Bach's most popular keyboard pieces. It is 6 movements, and Bach combines a number of different tempi, in other words, different speeds, dance-inspired pieces. This is not music to be danced to, but inspired by various court dances prevalent of the time or of previous times, and each one has a particular nature and character of the dance, and by combining the 6 together in one key, he comes up with an extended work of contrasted rhythms and textures. So for instance, the first movement is an opening prelude, very steady. The second movement, an allemande, a movement, exuberant, quite brilliant style of 4 beats in a bar. The third movement, Italian corrente, very skipping 3 beats in a bar, very exuberant. The fourth movement, a sarabande, originally from Spain, and I've always quite intrigued this idea that the sarabande, apparently the original dance, as people did dance to it, was banned in some courts of Europe because of its very lascivious, was the word that was used, lascivious hip movements which were attached to the original dance, and so some courts did not allow the sarabande to be danced. But the sarabande, a very slow and expressive dance in this case. 2 minuets, first minuet, second minuet, and the repeat of the first minuet, and the last of the 6 dances is jig, where Bach really pulls out all the stops and creates a very brilliant and exciting piece of English character. Now, we all know, we always think about Bach as a very devout Christian, a man who devoted his life to the worship of God and music, and he was very sincerely bound up. His music and his life was sincerely bound up with his faith. But we also have to remember, I think, that Bach actually was a very passionate and a very exuberant person himself. We can't be sidetracked by that element. I mean, as I've described before, and I told the story, he walked a distance of over 250 miles. It took him several weeks to hear the organist Buxtehude play. He was once imprisoned for fighting with one of his employees, who didn't like the way that Bach was demanding certain freedoms. And on one occasion, he was so upset and annoyed with the particular church elders that he was employed by that he, probably on purpose, made a quick stop at the wine shop on the way to church on Sunday morning and pitched up to play for the Sunday service drunk and made a terrible mess, and of course was asked never to come back. But the overriding thing, I think, which we have to remember about Bach is that he had 22 children. So this is a man who certainly enjoyed the earthly pleasures of life, a great man of great passion as well. And so I'm going to play for you now this suite, the Partita No. 1, 6 dances, very brilliant, very varied music, but it's out throughout. It has the same feeling of exuberance and uplifting. The melodies and the shape of the lines and the shape of the scales are always moving upwards, are always trying to reach the top point in the scale as it moves on. And it's such an incredibly brilliant piece. And then at the last movement, as I said, the jig, he really pulls out all the stops and creates a very virtuoso interaction where he asks the pianist to cross hands throughout the piece. So it's going to be a very interesting piece to watch on the close-up on the keyboard. So there we go. the magical exuberance there of J.S. Bach, one of his suites, many suites for keyboard, a suite of dances. That was the Partita No. 1, a set of 6 movements, prelude, the allemande, courant, sarabande, beautiful, slow, expressive movement with this very unique rhythmic meter, pattern of moving and stopping. You can imagine dancing in a court to that with certain foot, very delicate and certain foot movements attached to that rhythm. And then the minuets, the elegant minuets, ending off with a very exuberant jig, dancing a jig, a dance of English character. Now I'm going to move straight on to music by Claude Debussy, the early 20th century French composer. Oh gosh, it looks like we have trouble already. There's already trouble brewing. Lucy's coming in for a visit. Do you want her to come up? Okay, come. We had a little train station here. Whoopsie. Oh, there we go. Here is little Lucy. Lucy always wants to come and visit on the camera. She likes to come in earlier and earlier in the show now. Hello, Lucy. How are things today? Are you surviving in the humidity and the heat? Yes. Is that a yes? Yes, with a big fluffy coat, little pudding. She's nicknamed Pudding now for various reasons. And did you have a nice dinner? Yes. Little Lucy. Lucy, the long-haired Dachshund. Okay, now you've had your attention. Now you can lie very quietly in the cushions, and then you can enjoy the rest of the music. Promise it's going to be nice. Come, if you go. Here we go. Lucy, the little pudding. So, music by French composer Claude Debussy from the early 20th century. We know about Debussy's music, the Image, Estampe, the preludes, and much of this music comes from the later period of his life, where he really established a completely new style of piano playing and a new style of music making. But the compositions I'll play this evening are 3 pieces which come from the earlier years in the early part of his career. The first of which is a dance from 1890, very exuberant, very sprightly music, really inspired, I think, by the music of Chabrier, this exuberance of energy and rhythmic excitement. And what is, I think, characteristic about the early part of Debussy's career in music is that they're very clear melodies, they're very clear lines and phrases, whereas in the later part of his career, it seems his music is much more dissolved into fragments and moments of sound. So in this dance, very exciting piece of music, very brilliant, very difficult piece to play actually, but very exciting textures and a great rhythmic drive. The second piece, a very beautiful and well-known composition, Reverie or Daydreaming, piece of music that was later turned into a popular song in the 1970s. And then the third piece of music I'm going to talk about quite extensively, a piece that Debussy wrote. No, Lucy. Come, in your basket. In your basket, come, in your basket. Here we go. A piece of music Debussy wrote called L'Île Joyeuse, or the Joyous Island. Now, in this music, Debussy was apparently inspired by the painting L'Embarquement pour Cidre by the French artist in 1717. Barry's going to show you a picture of it now. Increasing in intensity to lure its visitors. The travelers who are about to go and visit this joyous place are about to embark on great episodes of rapturous joy, unbridled joy and ecstasy. It's an island of joy. And so this great exuberance starts in a very alluring way in the music, quietly at first, and then builds into a great passionate climax. It's really a very exciting piece of music. It's very unusual for Debussy's style. It's written for piano, but in an orchestral style. The fellow composer Maurice Ravel said it was an orchestral transcription for piano. In other words, normally a composer would write an orchestral piece and then rearrange it in a simplified version or a pared down version for piano. But in this case, Debussy seems to be inspired right from the beginning to write a very grand and orchestral sounding piece for the piano, but that's imitating the orchestra in terms of its layering and in terms of its sound. So it's a very exciting piece of music. And on a personal note, I was very enticed by this piece. When I was just studying first year at the university, I had a record, an LP, a long-playing record that I got hold of by the French pianist Jean-Philippe Collard. And it really opened my ears up to this amazing music. And one of the tracks on this album was L'Île Joyeuse. And I was so taken by this music that I listened to it endlessly day and night on a recording and on the record itself, the LP. And then I decided I was obsessed to play it. It was quite a difficult piece for me at the time. But it was an ongoing trouble, and I ended up practicing and practicing this piece and taking it to numerous lessons and trying to find the music, because it's a very difficult, it's a very unusual piece of music. It can be played in so many different ways quite successfully. The approach to it can be quite unique. But also, because I'd had this idea, this other interpretation in my ear, it was very difficult for me to clean that out and find my own way through it. And after many months of obsessive practicing, it would keep me awake at night. Several performances, I eventually gave it up, and I didn't come back to it, in fact, until a few days ago. So this is 25 years that I've revisited the moment and the opportunity to re-see this piece of music again. On another note, interestingly, the piece of music ends in a great bang, and it really ends on a very physical note. It has a great leap from the top, almost the very top note of the piano, to the very bottom note in a great split second. And it's a very dramatic end and very loud end. And in one of the performances, I did this with great exuberance, but instead of hitting the bottom note on the piano, I missed it. I overshot. And I ended up banging my finger into the cheek block on the end of the piano, which was not only created a deathly silence, there was no noise or whatever, but just a mild thud and a rather painful finger, because you have to use quite a lot of force. So I'm always approach that final bottom note now with a bit of caution and not too much exuberance. Anyway, so these are three pieces by Debussy: the Danse, Reverie and L'Île Joyeuse. to... No, that's fine. Sure. missed that note after all. You see, I hit. That was the one I was supposed to hit. So I thought I was going to hit the bottom. At least I didn't hit the cheek block and just come up with a dead silence on the wood, which is rather awkward. So that was three pieces by Claude Debussy, ending with L'Île joyeuse, the joyous island, a piece of music inspired by the painting L'Embarquement pour Cithere by Antoine Watteau. And before that, Reverie by Debussy, and before that, his very exciting piece of music called Danse, revised, written in 1890 and revised in 1903, I think. So I'm going to end off this evening's program with two pieces of music by the composer Frédéric Chopin. First of all, a very atmospheric nocturne, a nocturne of great mystery, very beautiful night. Night music is nocturnal music. And I think in this piece of music there's such an incredible stillness and a quietness and a silence that Chopin really finds himself in a very faraway place, dreaming of a land and a place and a time gone by. There's an exuberance, a build-up of energy, perhaps an approaching storm and wind and a crash of lightning, a great shine, a triumphant outcry, almost as though the moon suddenly appears before the opening texture and the opening mood returns. It's just incredibly beautiful the way it explores the piano and the sounds and the textures of the piano in a very resonant sense. And then the last piece of music I'll be playing for you this evening is one of four scherzos, or scherzi, that Chopin wrote. Now I did play this a couple of weeks ago, and it was during that live stream that our computer failed. So in fact the middle part of the scherzo disappeared and it just all went blank. Our computer is now been upgraded and we have a great, very reliable machine which is doing a great job so far. So I'm going to play this piece again. Scherzo in its original sense is a playful piece of music. It's something which is quite darkly playful. And this is a very grand piece. I think this is showing Chopin at his most exuberant, at his most outgoing. Chopin himself, his terms in his playing, was renowned for very subtle nuances and subtle inflections that really lent itself to him performing in small drawing room environments. This piece, however, is really one of his grandest pieces, composed and I'm sure intended for a great concert hall to really show off the grandeur and the brilliance and the strength that he could actually provide on occasion. And it's a very, very nourishing, it's a very positive and complete piece of music. I think it's got such logic, and by the end of it you really feel like you've been through a lot, but you've really come through to the end of the road. So this is the Nocturne, Opus 27, number 1, followed by the Scherzo, number 2, Opus 31. that's a great piece of music, and I hope that our computer didn't fail that time. The Scherzo No. 2, Opus 31, the second of 4 scherzi, or scherzos, by Frédéric Chopin, and I think in a forthcoming program, I'd like to play a whole program of Chopin and include all 4 of the scherzos, because they really are brilliant music. Really, Chopin at his most exuberant, outgoing, confident, playful, evocative, sensual, dreaming, mysterious, demonic, you might say, even for a moment. Really amazing music in that scherzo. And before that, the Nocturne, Opus 27, number 1. So I hope you've enjoyed this evening's performance. We have, I had my piano tuned yesterday, so it's all sounding pretty sparkling. The computer's up and running. We've changed our lighting a little bit. Wendy and Frida are here enjoying the music, I hope, nibbling on toes and things. And once again, that does bring us to the end of the performance. So if you are able to support us, if you are watching regularly, or even if this is your first time, we are depending entirely on the spontaneous and generous donations from you, the viewers, to not only earn a living, but also to fund these projects. The costs are ongoing. And it's a huge amount of work, but it's actually great fun. It's been a very wonderful project for everyone involved, in particular for my partner Barry and I, who's running the controls. Barry, thank you again for the extra lighting and for doing a really great job. Barry has a great understanding of the music, and he also gets to hear me practice all day long, so he knows the pieces intimately, so he can choose the right camera angles. I think he does a great job. I watch every stream at least once afterwards, and it's always very interesting to see this other side of what happens, not only the piano playing, but also the creative angles and the interplay and the camera timing of the camera angles and how they work together. So if you are able to support us, please visit our website, musicrevival.co.za. There's a page with donations and various links to various options to support us. The most direct being obviously a direct transfer in EFT. And we're really grateful for everyone who is supporting us. This has been going now into our 10th month, starting at the end of March. And I'm already thinking to see what great feat I can pull off for our 100th stream. This is now stream number 82. And I'm already planning for something at the beginning of March or middle of March when it will happen. So thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the selection of Chopin and Debussy and Bach. And I'm going to play out with just a little improvisation on that moment. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Wednesday. Have a good evening. Look after yourself and stay well.